morning, everyone, and welcome to a wonderful occasion, the Capstone defense of Tasha Baptiste, who is going to be speaking to us about measuring progress towards ESG goals, public relations as a steward of transparency, a research study on ESG communications in Canadian enterprises. Congratulations on getting to this point, Tasha. I'm going to just give us the rules of the road for the next hour. During the defense. Oh, by the way, I'm Dr. Alex Sévigny. I'm a professor in the MCM program. The rules of the road are as such. Tasha, you'll have approximately 25 minutes to give your presentation. After that, we go into a question period. The first questions will be asked by your supervisor, Dr. Terry Flynn. Set of questions will be asked by your second reader, Professor Josie Cassano-Rizzuti. And then we'll go through a second round of questions. At the end of that second round, I have a chance to ask questions as chair. And if we have time, we'll field questions from the audience as well. Right? Once that question period is done, we will put everybody into a room. Don't go away, stick around, because we'll stay for, the committee will confer for about, I don't know, probably about 5 minutes to discuss your results, and we will come back with a decision about whether or not you pass. So, all right, okay, have a wonderful presentation. We're starting at let's call it 9:33, so you have until 10:58. So, all right, the floor is yours.
9:58. 9:58.
Oh, 9:58. Yeah, right. Sorry, I'm all turned upside down today. Yeah, the floor is yours, Tasha.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here. Just 4 years ago, ESG was at its peak. It was integral for the corporate strategies of businesses and central to their value proposition. Today, as the climate crisis worsens, ESG is on shaky ground. It is challenged with the requirement for more data, more transparency, and a mix of mandatory and voluntary regulations, and a fragmented Canadian reporting system that is burdening Canadian businesses, leaving them susceptible to greenwashing. Criticism against ESG has also surged, indicating a decline in trust in its principles. The PR and communications functions of an organization find itself at the center of those challenges, as it plays a key role in supporting its social responsibility. My research is on ESG communications in Canadian enterprises. It examines how and to what extent do PR practitioners are involved in ESG reporting, and how thus reporting influences ongoing and transparent communications with organizational stakeholders. This research is focusing particularly on the practices of the best 50 corporate citizens in Canada. In the literature, ESG is considered a force for good. It is the ecological, societal, and managerial elements that stakeholders use when making business decisions. These considerations are vital for cultivating stakeholder trust and ensuring long-term sustainable growth. ESG also comes with the requirement for businesses to measure and report their impact. ESG reporting is a mechanism that organizations use as a communications product to enable their stakeholders to understand the impact of their business activities on people and on the environment. ESG reporting is crucial for transparency. It adds legitimacy to a business and adds credibility to a business. The academic literature on ESG is clear that if you're an organization and you don't disclose your ESG topics, then you ignore your stakeholders' concerns. ESG is also going through lots of changes right now. ESG is challenged with a lack of clear definition and a lack of variety in terminology. Although some of the reports are currently merging right now and trying to harmonize, these efforts are obviously slow, and the reports are still operating in silos. Those issues all contribute to a breeding ground for greenwashing. What is greenwashing, you ask? It is when an organization appears more environmentally friendly than it actually is. It is when there's a discrepancy between its green talk and its green walk. The government of Canada is now cracking down on greenwashing concerns through the amendment of the Competition Act through Bill C-59, which received royal assent in 2024. This new law mandates that all Canadian businesses from all sectors use scientific evidence and concrete data for all environmental claims in all verbal and written communications. A violation of the bill means hefty fines, severe penalties, and obviously reputational damages to your organization. ESG is also very polarized, especially at this time now. Proponents for ESG say that ESG is essential for the environmental protection, employee protection. But critics against ESG say that ESG hurts businesses, especially at a time when the economy is bad. Today, organizations and their PR experts must navigate these polarized views carefully, balancing stakeholder expectation while also maintaining their commitment to sustainability and social responsibility. Looking at the literature on ESG and on PR, in the literature, sustainability communications refers to any communications effort by an organization to promote its sustainability activities. That means using their communications tools such as reports, your website, your social media, your promotional materials, and events. Because sustainability makes sense through communications. Credible sustainability communications is a factor in driving up business value. In PR theory, the excellence theory can be applied here to ESG. I use two facets of the excellence theory. One is the involvement of public relations at the strategic management table. Simply put, PR needs to be involved when decisions are being made. The second one is when PR is most effective with using the two-way symmetrical model of public relations. What is a two-way model of public relations, you ask? It is when an organization uses a balanced flow of communications whereby all parties are communicating to each other as equals, seeking to maintain a relationship based on mutual needs, mutual understanding, and requires listening, negotiations, and a dialogue. Then I studied stakeholder management and stakeholder engagement. In ESG literature, PR literature, as well as stakeholder engagement literature, stakeholders such as your shareholders, your investors, communities, media, employees, customers, they're all critical to organization's sustainability goals. Stakeholders, they bring their own interest to an organization's decision-making process. And PR has the role of identifying those stakeholders and their complex interaction, what they bring to organizations, their own interests that make up the broader organizational stakeholder relationship. I also studied the influence and the autonomy of public relations. Ethical theories Bowen says that PR needs to be autonomous within an organization. When it's autonomous, it is uninfluenced by subjective factors in its decision. Therefore, it can contribute effectively to organizational effectiveness. The literature and the studies setup sets and validates the study's research problem in such questions. This is what I set out to study. How and to what extent are public relations practitioners involved in ESG reporting, and how does reporting influence ongoing and transparent communications with organizational stakeholders? Now, this is a loaded problem, so I broke it down into 4 research questions. Question number 1, how and to what extent do organizations define their ESG topics in their sustainability reports? Number 2, how and to what extent do PR practitioners influence ESG reporting in the organization? Number 3, how and to what extent do PR practitioners help to communicate their organization's ESG goals and progress? And 4, how and to what extent do PR practitioners communicate their organization's ESG progress in a heightened social advocacy in a highly regulated environment? Now, to answer all these questions, I've used 3 research methods. First, it is an extensive literature review on public relations, ESG communications, stakeholder engagement, and ESG reporting. I just went through that literature review at the top. Then I used a content analysis of 15 ESG reports that I conducted using the 2024 Best 50 Corporate Knights list. That was my sample, and I gathered a sample through a cluster sample. And then I conducted 12 one-on-one interviews with ESG communications and stakeholder engagement practices to gain their own understanding and perspective on how communications and reporting is being done within these organizations. The sample was also drawn from the 2024 Best 50 Corporate Knights list using a combination of a purposive, convenience, and snowball sample. All the methods here were triangulated to each other to provide an analysis for the study. Then I set out to prove the following. Public relations practitioners positively influence transparent and ESG reporting and transparent ESG communications. Now onto the results. For the first question, How and to what extent do organizations define their ESG topics in their sustainability reports? I first examined the role of stakeholders as outlined in those ESG reports. I found that 50% of organizations are using stakeholders to help them define their ESG topic. Here's 52% right here. And I found that 27% of organizations are using stakeholders to help them define their strategic priorities and provide guidance. And 7% are using them to contribute to a reporting approach. Then I looked at how organizations are actually reporting the definition of their ESG topics. The majority of organizations, 67%, are using a materiality assessment. 40% are using their organization's business strategy, their mission, vision, and values. And 20% are following industry and market requirements. Then I looked for stakeholder engagement methods that organizations use generally and in the definition of their ESG topics. I found that 92% of organizations are using the corporate website to communicate with stakeholders on ESG. 80% are using corporate publications, which means your ESG report, your annual report. And then 60% are using a survey, 60% are using your stakeholder engagement events, and 27% are using social media, interviews. So there's a variety of platforms here and methods that organizations are using to engage their stakeholders. And they don't just use one, they use multiples. For question number 2, using the 12 experts that I interviewed, I asked the experts, how are you involved in influencing ESG reporting? The research shows that 75% of the experts are influencing ESG reporting using their communications and the promotion of the ESG report once the report has been written and produced. 42% are influencing the production of the report, the drafting of the narrative, the content collection. 17% say that they influence the report in its review stages. Here, the report will be written by the ESG team and the PR expert. They bring a second set of eyes, a second line of defense before the report comes out. That means preventing brand risk and ensuring cohesive brand messaging. 25% of people here, they have influence over the full narrative of the report as well as the report's data. It is important to notice here that experts didn't touch just one point of the ESG reporting process. They touched multiple points. They would draft the report and as well as communicate it. So they would do multiple aspects. For question number 3, how and to what extent do public relations practitioners help to communicate their organization's ESG goals and progress with stakeholders? I asked the experts in the interviews, how symmetrical are your organization's communications? The majority of them said, 73%, they said they fully leverage the two-way model of communications proposed by Grunig to seek mutual understanding, engage in dialogue with their stakeholders. These stakeholders, they want to ensure that their reporting hits the mark for their audiences. And then 27% of experts say that they use the two-way symmetrical process, but partially. One of the experts said to me, he works within a utility industry. Some of the publics that they share the reports with, they don't really care about the ESG reports, but the city councilors do. So the city councilors, the organizations interact on a two-way method with those city councilors and that group of stakeholders. Then I asked the experts, how are you granted autonomy in the council that you provide to ESG teams within your organization? 66% said that they're granted some level of autonomy. And they share that full autonomy for them is not required as PR lacks the technical expertise in sustainability issues. An expert in the financial industry said that her team is empowered to be entrepreneurial, pitch an idea. But ESG, the ESG team is in charge of reviewing it from a content accuracy perspective, and it provides technical guidance and strategic guidance as well. 25% of the experts here, they said that they are granted full autonomy because they're holders of ESG stakeholder data. Then I asked the experts, how are you actively participating in your organization's strategic management? Are you involved at the decision-making table when big decisions are being made? Are you there? 42% of the experts said, yes, I'm at the table when decisions are being made. The other 30% said, I'm at the table when decisions are being made, but only when it comes to leadership of some projects. Otherwise, I'm not there. 25% of people said, I'm not there at all. I just stay in touch with my ESG expert. They tell me what's going on at the ESG strategic management table. Then I asked the experts for question number 4. How are your teams communicating your organization's ESG progress in a heightened social advocacy and regulated environment? I asked the expert, when it comes to Bill C-59 that just was received royal assent, what have you done to de-risk the communications? 30% of them said they've done nothing. They have no changes in their communications. They're not expecting to change anything because they have long prevented greenwashing. The other 30% of people said they will revise their content moving forward, and their organization may shift some statement they've made in the past. 8% of experts said we've already taken down our reports, we've scrubbed down our websites, and we've already adjusted certain statements. Then I asked the experts, how are you adapting to the heightened polarized environment when it comes to communicating ESG? The majority of experts, 73%, said that they will not adapt. They take comfort that their organization is aligned with the global energy transition and the business advantages that sustainability provides. The other 18%, they're evaluating their organization's environment and its context before moving forward to make any changes in their communications. So, merging the theory and the study's results, let's discuss what all this means. For question number 1, how organizations defining their ESG topic in their sustainability reports? The research determined that the definition of the ESG topic is ideal with stakeholder engagement. The research found that 66% of organizations in the sample are defining ESG topics by using a materiality assessment. A materiality assessment is what helps organizations to achieve the highest level of coincidence between their own interests and the interests of their stakeholders. By publicly disclosing a list of the material topics as a result of that assessment, organizations make a conscious choice to transparently communicate to their stakeholders the issues, the potential risk, the opportunities that will likely have an impact on their business activities moving forward. The research found that a materiality assessment uses Grunig's two-way model of communication, and it leverages dialogue in methods like a survey or a stakeholder engagement event to really understand how stakeholders feel about the organization's ESG practices, as these stakeholders are important because they can be beneficial or detrimental to the organization's ESG goal. For question number 2, how are PR practitioners influencing ESG reporting? The research determined that PR helps to make the reporting helpful, whether it is drafting the report's narrative, contributing to the content collection process, or reviewing the report for reputational risk, or developing the communications plan for the report's release. PR positively influences ESG communications and ESG reporting, which proves here the research hypothesis. Moreover, experts had influence over multiple stages of the reporting process. I also found that PR helps to bring sense to sustainability. Public relations practitioners broke down the technical jargon that the organizations required for the translation of terms and of sentences for stakeholders that are not proficient in ESG. PR helped bring awareness and amplifies the organization's impact and ESG activities, making them more accessible to the public, and it shall help to shape stakeholders' understanding. If you have access to data, then you have more influence. The stakeholders the PR experts that I interviewed that access to data, they were out in the field interviewing stakeholders. So these people had more influence over the ESG process. So for question number 3, how and to what extent do PR practitioners help to communicate an organization's ESG goals, progress with the organizational stakeholders? The research determined that if complex relationships require two-way communications. The research found that Kenyan businesses that I interviewed here, that I analyzed, they were all managing multiple complex relationships with stakeholders that all brought their own needs to the organization. If you have a global company, then your stakeholders are even more to think about. Therefore, the two-way model of communication was essential here for 72% of organization in the sample. And then so they would use that to engage with their stakeholders, engage in dialogue, seek mutual understanding, and really build a trust with their stakeholders. Organizations also use stakeholder engagement that works best for them and their audience and in their own context. In the literature, I looked at Riley and Luria's study, which identified corporate reports, your websites, and social media as key stakeholder engagement methods. But for my research, I looked at the broader ESG management of stakeholder engagement. So I found that ESG surveys that were sent to stakeholders, stakeholder engagement events, site visits, public consultations, these methods were also as effective for these organizations. This study doesn't really pinpoint the most effective stakeholder engagement method, but it highlights that organizations choose what works best for their context and what's best for their audience. For instance, an expert in the resource industry said to me that he goes to indigenous communities up north where the mining are, but there's no internet access. So making their websites and their social media posts completely ineffective. So meeting with stakeholders in person is the best bet here for his organization. Then the research determined that if you have full autonomy, research determined that full autonomy is not required or is not desired for the majority of PR experts. The experts reported partial autonomy works best for them. Moreover, they understand that they're now limited by Bill C-59, which demands more technical requirements to communications, as organizations have now to report more concrete data with their communications. Here, organization structures don't really support for PR to be fully autonomous. And Bowen would hate this, but PR here is happily constrained and happily partially autonomous, as they understand here that ESG is necessary to make them full autonomous. Then the research finds that if you have access to data, then you have full autonomy. 25% of the experts that I spoke to said they're granted full autonomy because they're holders of the stakeholder data. Then the research found that PR's involvement in strategic management is complicated, but it is there. The research found that while some PR practitioners are involved in the decision making, some were fully involved, some were not fully involved. 42% said they recognize they're at the table, which means that their organizations really recognize their value in the engagement process, at the management process, and that they ensure that the organization has their voices at the table from the get-go. The other 32% said that they're partially involved. Their appearance is brief at the strategic management table. They only appear when they're needed. But there's two reasons for this that I found. I found that PR and stakeholder engagement people that were not at the strategic management table all the time. These people either failed to prove their values to their organizations, or their organizations didn't support their full involvement when decisions are being made. To address this, though, I spoke to two experts who stated that they had to insert themselves in strategic conversations to prove their value and to be at the table. For question number 4, I found that PR practitioners are marching on with ESG despite the polarization. 72% of experts expected no changes in their actions, irrespective of political agendas from the left or the right. They're staying the course with ESG with confidence. Sustainability for them is embedded in the organization's DNA, which supports the body of literature on corporate purpose. They also believe that their organizations has a license to operate, and ESG is part of that license to operate. One expert said to me, society wants this, society needs this, there's no backing away from it. Let's not also forget that these organizations have been recognized by the best 50 corporate nice list because of their strong environmental and social performance. In ESG communications, context is king, which makes that this word context is really important, as I said today. Before making any changes, organizations are evaluating their environment. They're looking at what's going on in their environment, testing the different things out before they make any decisions in changing their communications. By context, I mean checking your environment, communicating, and seeing what you're able to offer as an organization and what you're able to achieve. Or Bill C-59. Bill C-59 is now the connection between ESG communications and ESG reporting. With Bill C-59, organizations are now operating their ESG communications under the watchful eye of the Competition Bureau. The Competition Bureau can come at any time and analyze your website. Therefore, they have to be more careful in communicating every product that they put out. The new bill demands that all Canadian businesses match their communications to their actions to their data, making these two essential components of ESG management, the communications and the reporting, linked and interconnected. This link is crucial as it ensures that organizations or stakeholders receive the same evidence throughout the year and that discrepancies are prevented to prevent organizational reputation damages. Are organizations ready for Baptiste 59? Yes and no. Some people are, they already scrubbed their website. Some people are not. They are monitoring the environment moving forward. They're seeing what's going on before they make the changes. And some people say, yes, we're ready for it. So our organizations have long prevented greenwashing and we're confident in our ability to prevent those issues. So here, this is all great research. However, there are several limitations to the study. They've been all designed by one researcher, which is myself, which introduces some potential biases to the research. The Canadian enterprises in this study don't fully reflect the general population of enterprises, so therefore the findings cannot be generalized, but they're significant. The sample of organizations in the content analysis also didn't reflect the organizations in the interviews, and I had a small interview sample. I also only focused on the 2024 Best 50 Corporate Nights list. And my research was time-bound, which didn't leave enough time for inequitable distribution across geographies, sectors, industries, preventing identification per theme or sector and industry. So in conclusion, the research proves that sustainability makes sense to communications, and PR practitioners are positively influencing ESG communication and ESG reporting. Furthermore, ESG reporting and communications make sense now in a unison fashion, and they must work together in lockstep, driven now by Bill C-59. PR experts, we have our work cut out for us, as we must balance stakeholder expectation and balance organizational expectations. Being a steward of transparency means that PR advocates for stakeholders, integrates them in the ESG process, regular touch points with them to share context, listening to their viewpoints, to maintain an ongoing dialogue. This ensures that sustainability efforts are transparent, inclusive, and continuously evolving. For the recommendations, I put up 4 for the industry moving forward as the result of the study. First, PR can develop its own knowledge of sustainability issues. Data is an asset. Data helps build autonomy and influence. 2, I propose that organizations and PR experts must understand their own goals, their own context, their business goals, and their ESG goals, and as well as their stakeholders. This is important, especially in a shaky political and social environment. 3, two-way symmetrical communications remains essential. And 4, ESG experts and PR experts must get to know each other and partner well. Thank you for everyone for listening today. Thank you to my family, especially to my parents and my brother, for always encouraging me to learn more and pursue higher education. To all my friends who are here supporting me today, thank you. To my colleagues at Expo Development Canada, and thank you as well. And a special thank you to my manager, Jessica Draker, for unwavering support throughout this research and throughout this program. And a big thank you to my supervisor, Terry Flynn, my second reader, Josie Cassano, and all my classmates from MCM 16 who inspire me and encourage me every day. Thank you to everyone. I'm happy to answer your questions.
Thank you very much, Tasha. The excellent presentation, full of content and right on time. So perfect. Very good. Now, without further ado, I'm going to go to your supervisor, Dr. Terry Flynn, for the first set of questions.
Congratulations, Tasha. Excellent paper, excellent presentation. I want to talk about the context today because I think you know, one of your limitations, you talk about time bound, right? So this data was collected during a period of time. Your research and your passion for ESG was formed by what has happened over the last 4 years and 2 years in this program as well. But you know, the landscape has fundamentally changed. On his first day in office, even though it feels like it's only like 4 days ago, but it feels like a month already. He issued executive orders that there were 9 of them I've counted here that are focused especially on ESG. And you talked about you responded saying, you know, hey, we're on this, we're committed to this. The purpose, passion, and vision of the organization demands that we continue to do this. You know, damn the torpedoes. Do you really think that that person would say the same thing after this week? And Is the bravado underestimating Trump's desire to crush this whole ESG world?
Yes, this is a good question. That person would not say the same thing. Yes, Trump was inaugurated on Monday. And then, yes, he did issue executive orders, leaving the Paris Agreement, leaving the Green New Deal, and a lot of great things that the Biden administration had put forward to propel ESG in the United States. However, yes, he's issuing things against ESG, but there's a lot of states in like California, like New York, that are expected to take the lead on ESG, as these states are big economic hubs, and organizations, if they're operating in those states, they will likely have to follow stringent ESG regulations. In addition, a lot of US companies, also multinationals, they operate in places like Europe and Australia, where ESG regulations are still in place and they are continued to be strong. So yes, Trump can do one thing, but organizations have to find the right balance between what Trump wants and what other jurisdictions actually want and need for their own people. So so organizations for the Kenyan context, I've noticed that organizations will continue to move forward with ESG, and I'm expecting for the US as well that organizations they will listen to see what Trump is saying, listen to see the context and the environment, but they do have other context and environment that they have to look at, like Europe and Australia, that they have to acknowledge as well. So I'm expecting that organizations will continue the course as well on ESG. There's a decline in trust, there's a decline in rolling back commitment of ESG, but it's a lot of organizations valued it as their license to operate, as their as reputational propel their reputation. So I see ESG continuing in the United States, a bit less than what we had before, but it's still there.
Thank you for that. I'm not sure what's going to happen with tariffs and whether or not he uses some of these kind of continued measures to sort of beat Canadian companies on ESG, but we'll wait and see. So the second question is, you talk about a lot of limitations. What was your greatest challenge in this research study, and what would you do differently if you had to start today?
Yes, greatest challenge was the content analysis of the study. Although I have really great results that I'm really proud of right now, the content analysis portion was probably the hardest, because all the ESG reports that I analyzed, they're all completely different. They have different layouts, different style, everything was completely different. Some of the reports were 35 pages, some of them were 135 pages. So none of the reports followed a standard or uniformity in them. So it was really important to find a method that worked for me. Shout out to Kevin for being my second coder, but I had to spend a lot of time to really analyze, read each report, find where the things are located, and identify what I was looking for. That was the hardest part. And yes, so it actually worked out, but that was the most challenge in the research at all. ESG is not linear in organizations. Organizations also not linear themselves, and everything in ESG in each organization is different. So there's no uniformity. That was my hard challenge, but it all worked out.
Great, thank you. That's all I have for this round.
Thank you, Tasha, for a beautiful, beautiful presentation on ESG, highlighting a lot of the issues that are out there in the environment that we have today. Terry, great question, seeing this week the changes that have come forward. I do know that ESG has a lot of regulation now coming, and particularly it's compulsory in some organizations, particularly those that are working on decarbonization and other parts. In some ways, I also feel that ESG will take over some of our investor relation departments. And from the finance perspective, that is a connection that is being made, that investors must have that information in order to, especially the current generation, they won't invest in companies without solid ESG reporting. So it's a wonderful space to look at from a public relations perspective, and you did a great job with your pointed questions and great research using content analysis and interviews. So your research highlights PR's role in ESG reporting. What was the most surprising finding that emerged during your interviews? With practitioners. What did you find the most surprising?
Yes, what I found was the most surprising, and I didn't cover this in the presentation, but the paper is 138 pages, so there's more in there. What I found was the most surprising was Bill C-59. A lot of organizations are welcoming the bill, other organizations are not welcoming the bill, and most organizations are feeling more neutral about the bill. One of the experts said to me that he works in the energy industry, the utility energy industry, and for them, the bill was a surprise, and the industry was taken off guard by this new bill. And then another expert said to me, this bill is now new regulation that they have to be do on top of what they're already doing. So it's more stringent regulations, more regulations on Canadian businesses at a time when productivity in Canada is low. So that was surprising to me. That was the most interesting portion of the conversation that I had. It was the bill was welcomed in some places, not welcome in some other places, but a lot of people had mostly neutral reactions toward the bill. Some people were ready for the bill, and other people were not ready for the bill, and they were like analyzing what they have and seeing how their context is changing. So yeah, that was exactly what was important to me. It was the Kenyan context in that new bill that really changes the ESG communications in the Kenyan landscape.
Great, thank you. And how do you see the relationship between ESG reporting and organizations' transparency evolving maybe in the next 5 years? Or it doesn't have to be 5 years, just how do you see it changing? So much is going on. Political landscape is changing. Governments are in flux. Many corporations have all of these different standards available to them. You talked about lack of consistency. Do you see consistency coming, or maybe what are the top things you see coming down the pipe in the next few years?
Yes, good question. ESG reporting is going to be more standardized moving forward, but it will take forever. Not forever, but at least a good amount of time. The ISSB was formed during International Standards Board, or Standards International Board. Sorry if I'm messing this up, but they were formed during COP26 back in 2021, and the ISSB now is trying to gather a lot of the well-known reports like SASB and the GRI and the TCFD under its belt. However, they're all they've gathered, but they're not all harmonizing yet. The site they're still operating in different silos. All of these standards are still having their own requirements. Some organizations are using multiple standards and are putting like a concordance table in the back of the report so that they can pinpoint some of what the stakeholders are looking for if you have different reports and different standards. But ESG is still moving towards greater transparency and more data. There is a lot of technical third-party experts that are coming in to support organizations, but it still remains a little inconsistent. So the ESG reporting landscape remains inconsistent globally, not just in Canada, but globally, and that also impacts our context. But it'll still remain inconsistent for a little while, even if new regulations and more data is going to be propelled in the future. Organizations have to take the time to adjust to the new regulation. All these regulations now already burdensome for Kenyan companies to understand now. And then now when new ISSB comes in or something else new comes in, it creates additional work. So it's not going to be happening overnight. It will take a long amount of time, and it will take time for businesses to adjust. It will take time for ISSB itself to adjust. So organizations will take a lot of time to really adjust. So inconsistencies are prevailing for the ESG industry and the reporting industry for the foreseeable future. Maybe in the next 4 or 5 years, we'll see more harmonization and more consistencies. But for the time being, it's being very inconsistent.
Thank you. Great answer. Great opportunities for public relations to help harmonize and communicate those standards. So thank you. That's it for me.
So let's go to round two. So Dr. Flynn.
So recognizing your passion and now your expertise in this field. So what are you going to do with this research?
What am I going to do with research? Good question. I met with a lot of the experts that I was interviewing, and they also said that they wanted to see the research, the results that I was proposing, because of everybody was very passionate about this. They're like, oh wow, nothing has been done really like this in a Kenyan context where Kenyan companies are evaluated and interviewed. So everyone was really interested in seeing the research study. So the study is very long. So I'm trying to put together even like a summary or a corporate report where I can share it with these experts, or maybe something more consumable like a podcast or something more interesting that they can listen to, because I don't want to make sure everybody reads a long study, but at least they get the tidbits of the study. And I'm also looking forward to proposing my draft or my abstract to one of the international public relations conference coming up in the future, maybe the one in November. That would be a good opportunity to share Kenyan context in an international setting.
I agree. It was a long paper, and they probably don't want to read a long paper. So congratulations. And I do encourage you. I mean, I like the idea of the podcast and really, talking about this. I think your expertise really is critical, because nobody is on the forefront at this period of time, right? And so staying current on what's happening, I think, is going to be helpful for your own organization, but also anybody else that is seeking information about what to do at this point. That's all I have.
Professor Cassano-Rizzuti, do you have any questions?
Yeah, I'm just going to thank Tasha for bringing this important topic forward and really being, as Terry said, on the leading edge of public relations with ESG and the importance of the two together, and look forward to helping you share that, hoping you'll share it in the finance class, maybe as your short podcast or some other way. So we can take that offline for other students to enjoy and learn, and perhaps even go into this important area that it definitely has a bright future.
Thank you, Josie.
So as chair, I have the opportunity to ask a question if I want to, and I often will ask a methodological one. And this is a really well done study, and I have to say it was a pleasure to read it, and well written too. My question is, if you had to change something in your methodology looking backward, right? What would you think of changing to improve this study, or would you change anything?
Yes, I would change one thing. I would change I would change the content analysis portion. Here's what I would do in the future. I would do it probably separately. I would do content analysis on its own, because the ESG reporting industry and communications industry is very broad, and a lot of research in Canada has been done. So the content analysis would be a separate study with a bigger sample, not just corporate knights, but at least organizations from multiple places across Canada. That could be one study on its own. Another study can be the ESG communications, interviewing the stakeholders, and as well as PR experts. I feel like my study was big and it had a lot of things thrown in there, which means that the study can be separated into different portions, and each portion can really carry their own weight moving forward, instead of having just one big research where everything is combined. I think that would be essential for the research moving forward. That research can really show the reporting system on its own, what PR experts are talking about on their own, and then so that can be more giving more space to each of those methodologies to really speak for themselves. So yeah, that's what I would change.
Yeah, great answer. It's true. I mean, when I read through it, the content analysis I mean, what you did was already thorough and hefty. But I mean, it could easily have been its own paper as well. That's quite true. Yeah, would be a very interesting next paper. It's content analysis in ESG is this really interesting area that's evolving, and particularly speaking to Professor Cassano-Rizzuti's point about, it going from being government driven to market driven, right? In terms of, big funds wanting to seek investment. And so content analysis becomes more of a, kind of market indicator. right? So very, very interesting. Great work. Great work. So now I'll open it up to the gallery. We actually have about 5 minutes for questions. So is there anybody in the audience that we have a question from Christina.
Hi, Tasha. Great presentation. I'm MCM in the MCM 18, so I'm at the start of my journey. But my question is more related to my work. I'm deep into this bill at work from a public relations, government relations, and corporate reputation perspective. We lean into the support the bill, but there are certain flaws in it. And I think one of the key things that's different for the Competition Bureau with this one is that anyone from the public can file a claim against an organization. It's not just the Competition Bureau reviewing them. And so one of the key concerns is around nonsense claims. So my industry is highly regulated, but it's also under great public scrutiny. And so one of our key concerns is how are we going to manage all of these nuisance claims that are going to be strategically used as a leverage. So I'm curious if any of your research or your interviews talked about that at all, how to manage and mitigate nonsense claims.
No, my research didn't cover nonsense claims, but my research covered what PR experts know about the bill, how they've reacted to the bill, and what they're doing about the bill. So it didn't get into these concept claims or deeper information. But what I found out is that a lot of the Competition Bureau was very vague in its first issue of information, and more information is moving forward. A lot of people have complained about the bill, and now there's a huge public consultation happening. But so it didn't get into the claims, but it got into how PR experts are actually dealing with the bill. Some of the experts that I didn't cover this, some of the findings, but some of the experts didn't know about the bill. I was like, there's this bill, and they're like, oh, interesting. But the majority of them knew about the bill, and some people were saying that yes, they know about the bill, they're preparing for it, but legal is looking at the bill. Legal is telling me what I'm going to communicate about, and these kind of things. So a lot of the experts, they were aware about the bill and these implications, but other people weren't as informed. So so the deepness of the question that you're asking is really important, but that was also back in November, and my research was done from September to October 2024. So a lot of evolution hasn't happened. But I'm sure if I ask these experts now, they probably have more to provide.
Yeah, they'll be thinking about it soon because it's coming live in June. So thank you. It was a great presentation.
Thank you.
Any further questions from the gallery? Or comments? An unusually quiet gallery today, considering this was a data-rich topic. So
yeah, MCM 16 has a pact. They don't ask each other questions because they're afraid of getting asked those questions again. I know this. I mean, look at all those.
So
I know Kevin.
There were no questions.
Kevin is itching to ask a question. You could just see his face. Look at his face. Yeah. He's just like, oh, but I was the intercoder reliability proof point, so I can't. So I'm well done.
I won't do that to Tasha. It was a great presentation.
Thanks, Kevin.
All right. Okay. Well, okay. I'll ask one more time. So, any questions or comments from the gallery? No. All right. So then, what we'll do is we'll go into we'll confer the committee. So, Terry will put all of you into a room by yourselves. Don't leave, because obviously we'll be back in about 5 minutes with a decision, and then we will announce it.
Yeah. So for those of you who are new to the way we do it, you'll have an invitation to join a breakout room. Please accept that invitation.